Without further ado, let's begin this session. Okay, basically this session is for anyone, okay, to attend, to be informed, to know what are your options and what to do next when managing or addressing a debt problem. Okay, let me assure everyone on our CCS client relationship, our client confidentiality. Okay, bear in mind that we do not disclose to let anyone know, a third party, of whether it's a family member or employee, that you are seeking assistance from CCS, unless that employer is a financial institution and a party of the debt management program. Meaning, if someone comes to CCS, seek assistance from CCS, and after meeting with our financial counselor, we find him or her suitable to be on our debt management program, CCS will be preparing a proposal, a repayment schedule to all the financial institutions creditors. And if this person is actually working for a bank and one of the banks is listed in his list of creditors for the debt management program, then only the employer will know. But in other situations, we do not disclose to employers, to family members, or any third party with regards to anyone seeking assistance from CCS. Now, a bit about us. Okay, CCS is a social service agency. We are independent, we are not for profit, and we are a non-government linked organization. We are registered with the Commissioner of Charities, and we are a member of the National Council of Social Service NCSS. Now, what we have been doing for the past 16 years, okay, we are helping distressed borrowers by promoting the responsible use of credit. We provide one-to-one financial counseling to address debt problems, and on behalf of borrowers to work out a suitable debt repayment arrangement with their creditors where appropriate. Now, as of December 2019, just to share with you some of the statistics, okay, more than 31,000 individuals have received financial counseling from CCS, and more than 22,000 individuals are successfully placed on our debt management program facilitated by CCS. Now, in those early years, these are our supporters when we first started. Now, these organizations have helped CCS in one way or another, and we would like to acknowledge their support. Now, our working partners include the Association of Banks, who we work very closely with, and with Credit Bureau Singapore. As you know, Credit Bureau Singapore is where you will be getting your Credit Bureau report, right? Your data depository. And as of 1st of April, CCS, or working in partnership with the Credit Association of Singapore, formerly known as the Moneylenders Association of Singapore, to help borrowers who have loans with licensed moneylenders as well as bank loans and credit card loans. They can approach CCS and see whether they are suitable to be on a debt restructuring program. Okay, I will share with you more on this later on during our talk. As mentioned earlier, we actively promote the responsible use of credit. We impart knowledge and skills on credit and money management. We assist debt-distressed individuals, okay, by providing reliable information on how to address a debt problem. And we provide financial counseling session, and where suitable, to work out a debt repayment arrangement under our debt management program where appropriate. Now, this presentation will be divided into 3 different segments. Now, for segment 1, I will cover on what are the do's and don'ts when getting out of debt spiral and how to deal with creditors, and what are some of the common collection actions that creditors can take action against an individual. Now, in segment number 2, I will cover the debt settlement options. All in all, there are 6 various types of settlement options. So I will guide you one by one through it, and also an introduction on CCS debt management program. And finally, in the third segment, on seeking assistance is what to do next and to prepare oneself when going for a financial counseling session with CCS. Now, for segment number one, getting out of a debt spiral. Now, before I go into this segment, what actually is a debt spiral situation? Well, it refers to a situation where an individual sees an ever increasing level of debts. Now, this increasing level of debts and debt interest become unsustainable and eventually leading to defaults in payments. Now, what do you need when you want to get out of a debt spiral? You will need CCS. Okay, when I say CCS here, let's find out what it actually stands for. It's not Credit Counseling Singapore. Okay, so the first C is making an informed choice. Now, bear in mind, after attending this session, you will find out a bit more on how you can get all this relevant information, what are the various ways and techniques to actually get out of a debt spiral, and knowing what are the suitable debt settlement options available for yourself. Now, bear in mind that only you can decide what is the best suitable option. Now, bear in mind, everyone's financial situation is not the same. Everyone's financial commitments are not the same. So we cannot say, oh, there's only a one way out for you, this and that. We cannot decide for you. We can only show you what are the options available. Eventually, when you seek assistance from CCS, meeting with our financial counselor, the counselor will guide you through. But only you can make that informed decision to the best of your ability based on your situation that you are facing. Now, the next C is about making a change. Now, change is necessary when it comes to adjusting how we manage our day-to-day money, how we manage our lifestyle. Now, we cannot afford or to say, oh, I want to expect a different result, but my method are still the same. Day in and day out, the way I manage money is still the same, but I want to make a change. I want to do something different. Now, it has to come from within when you realize that, hey, this is necessary. Now, making a change is definitely necessary in how you manage your money. And finally, as seeking assistance. Now, be open in seeking advice and receiving advice. Okay. And the other thing that we want to also share with you is on gaining emotional support. Now, you can lean on support from your family and friends. And I know when we talk about debt situation, it's something that we are definitely not proud and open to talk to anyone. So we actually will be seeing who we can trust to talk. And when we talk to them, it's not that we are asking for financial assistance or whatsoever. It's basically to get that emotional support. Because in this particular manner, when you're moving forward, addressing your problems, you need somebody to lean on. Yeah. So remember CCS, inform choice, make a change, and to seek assistance and be open to advice. Now let's just go through the different type of debts. Okay. Now, secured loans. What are secured loans? Now, basically, it can be categorized under housing loans and vehicle loans. Now, normally it is tied to a collateral or an asset. For example, if you purchase a vehicle, right? If you are unable to pay for that vehicle, what happens is that the lender can repossess that vehicle. Similarly to a housing loan, whether you take a loan with HDB or with a financial institution, you're unable to make payments to the loan, the lender can repossess that asset in case of an event of a default. Now, if you are facing difficulties when making payments for a secured loan, what you need to do is to approach the lender directly and seeking assistance from them. Okay, during COVID-19, there's extended credit support measures for individuals under the Monetary Authority of Singapore. So what happens is that for residential property loans, either defer the principal payments or defer both the principal and the interest payments up to 31st December. Now, there's temporary reduction of the installments up to 60%, okay, and up to 9 months, not exceeding 31st December 2021, loan tenure extension up to 3 years, granted on a case-by-case basis. And this application period is from the 9th of November 2020 and is extended until the 30th of June next year. Now, for more info, you can actually go to the Monetary Authority of Singapore's website and get the info and read through and see whether this is applicable if you're seeking any form of assistance from the lender. Now, it comes to unsecured debts. The types of unsecured debts can include credit cards, credit lines, overdraft, personal study or renovation loans, including payday loans from licensed moneylenders. Now, for this particular webinar, we are talking about addressing an unsecured debt problems, and listed on the screen are the debts that CCS will help to address. Now, just in additional information as well, there's extended support for individuals with unsecured credit. Okay, this is only for credit cards or revolving credit lines where you can convert the outstanding balances into a term loan up to 5 years with interest capped to 8%. Now, this is only available for Singaporeans and PRs. Okay, if necessary also to show a loss of income of at least 25% drop after the 1st of February. Okay, and accounts cannot be more than 90 days past the due point of application. And this application window period is also extended until 30th June next year. How you want to apply is you have to seek assistance directly from the institution or the financial institution itself. Okay, this is only that it's not based on an opt-in. You have to go and apply for it. Now, when it comes to dealing with unsecured debts, now let's just take a common example of credit card debts. Now, what happens is that if, let's say, you continue to make payments, sometimes you find that you might encounter this problem. I keep on paying towards my credit card debts, but how come my debts are going up? Is it because that I'm making late payments? Is it also because that I'm only making the minimum payment but not the full amount? Or it can also be that you continue to use the card. So that's why it is going up with all these factors. Now, what you can do is that to stop using the credit card or stop using that credit line account. Now, make an effort to pay on time before the statement due date and pay the initial amount and stick to this amount. Okay, I will illustrate this in a short example after this. Now, in this example, let's say for month one, I have an opening balance of $10,000 in this particular credit line. Now, I only pay $300, right? $300 is basically 3% of the outstanding balance. And when I talk about the interest of 2%, let's say we took an example of 24% interest per year for credit cards, right? And per month is roughly around 2%. So when you pay $300 as your minimum, your payment of interest actually goes to 200 goes into interest, and your principal is $100, and you're left with a closing balance of $9,900. Now, let's say in month two, I do not charge anything to the card, and I still have my opening balance based on the previous month, which is $9,900. Now, I still continue to make $300 the minimum payment. Now, you notice that there is a drop, even though it's 2%, because 2% is now based on your last opening balance of 9,900, which is $198, and your amount of going to your principal, there's a slight increase, and your closing balance reduce. Now let's go into month three. There's further reduction, right? I still keep on paying the 300, which is my minimum amount. I stick to it. I pay on time. Interest of 2% is based on my last opening balance, and my payment on principal goes up. Now let's move a bit fast. 1 year later, okay, I never use the card. My opening balance reduced. I pay $300. I pay on time every time. Interest of 2% is based on 8,783. Interest 176. Payment of on principal actually goes up. Now in about 4 years, you will see, right? I stick to the plan. I pay 300 minimum every month. I pay on time. I don't charge anything else to the card. There will be further reduction, and payment of principal actually increases. Now in about 5 years, you will see that by sticking to the original payment amount, the minimum amount, there's further reduction in the payment of interest, and there's an increase in the payment of principal. Okay, so one of the things that we talked about earlier Stop using the facility to prevent the accumulating debts from going up. Stick to the initial amount. Of course, if you can pay more, why not? At the same time, pay on time, right? Now, what if you cannot pay the minimum amount? That is just based on just one example of a credit card account that you may have. But what if you have more than one and the minimum amount can go up to like 1,000 per card? Definitely you won't be able to cope. And this is where we are be covering in segment number 2 on considering what are the other debt settlement options available. Now, when it comes to dealing with creditors, there are a few things that you need to take note of. Okay, you need to respond to their calls, answer their calls. Now, they will keep on calling as long as there are overdue payments. Okay, and normally you will go through a voice recorder. If you don't answer the first time, within the next 1 hour, they will auto-generate, they will start to call you again. Okay, if they send any letters to you, okay, you need to open, you need to read, and you need to respond to these creditors because you need to know what is going to happen next. If you continue to default, are they going to take any form of action against you? You need to know. Now, when it comes to making best effort payments while exploring and working out your options, when we say best effort payments, it means something like this. For example, if you receive a call from your creditor say, you need to pay me $200 end of this month. I don't care. But you really, really do not have $200. You look out into your budget and you say, hey, I only have $50. So you tell the creditor, I only have $50. Definitely, the creditor will say, no, 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 I want 200. I don't care. But you put in the best effort, you put this $50 into the account. Doesn't mean that when the creditor say, I don't want to accept your $50, you just keep quiet. Huh? You put in your best effort payment. You can only afford $50. You pay to this account. At the same time, you go and find out and explore what are the options available for you. Okay, this is what I mean by best effort payments. It doesn't mean if the creditor said, I won't accept your amount, means we can just sit back and relax. No, no such thing. Okay, so best effort payments really comes from yourself. Now, the other thing that we need to take note of, okay, do not ever assume that the creditor will lose money if they were to proceed with any form of legal action taken against you. For example, bankruptcy. Now, let's take a look in this next segment on the common collection actions, what creditors can do to recover the money owed. Now, at the pre-collection phase, it's just phone calls, reminder letters. This is just at the pre-collection phase. Now, what's going to happen next is that you can receive a letter of demand, an LOD, and this is normally through a third party legal organization. If let's say you receive a letter of demand and you choose to ignore, what can happen next is that you can be issued with a writ of summons. Now, the writ of summons is actually also known as the originating summons. Now, this is actually a legal document in Singapore's civil proceedings. Now, basically, this is to inform of an intended or initiated legal action against an individual. Now, this is how it roughly looks like. Okay, a writ of summons. They will have come with the state court logo, and then there will be the name of the person, and then there will be the writ of summons, and they will inform what is going to happen next. Now, let's say I receive this writ of summons. I choose to ignore. What can happen next? I can be declared as a judgment debtor. Now, by being declared as a judgment debtor, meaning that you are giving more authority to the creditor to take further action against you. And what can happen next is known as a writ of seizure and sale, or we call it the WOSS. Now, writ of seizure and sale will allow the court bailiff to enter the judgment debtor's premise or home to seize and sell his or her mobile or movable properties. Okay, normally the debtor will be given 7 days to settle all payments. Now, if he or she is unable to make the settlement, now what happens is that the items in the home will be auctioned off. Now, before that, when the court bailiff comes with the creditor representative, right, to your premise of the judgment debtor's home, they will be pasting stickers, example, on the dining table, living room sofa, television set. They can paste these stickers, and you are not allowed to remove these stickers. Now, eventually, if you are unable to make settlement, okay, then they will come and auction off all this to offset the loan. Now, let's say during the first time you receive a letter for this writ of seizure and sale, and you choose to ignore, you throw it away. Okay, and they come to your marching to your door, knock on your door, you don't open, they can go away. But for the second time when they come, they actually will have the authority to actually come with a locksmith, remove the padlock from your home, and go into your premise to do the necessary. Okay, I'm not trying to scare anyone, but I used to work for a social service agency before joining CCS way back, and I was also in the line of helping people addressing various types of debts, and it happened to one of my former clients. Now, it can be really emotional, especially when you have a family with young kids, and then you find out, one day that the people who come over and take all these items from your home, and you don't know how to explain to your spouse and your kids. It can be really, really emotional. Okay, so I do not wish for any one of us to actually go through this kind of situation. Now, the other way is that the creditor can also issue a statutory demand through the court. Okay, now statutory demand is a legal written request informing that they may continue or they can proceed with court proceedings on bankruptcy if the person do not comply with the statutory demand. Now, this can further lead to a bankruptcy or even a debt repayment scheme. Now, do not worry so much about this. I will cover this in segment number 2 when we talk about the various types of debt settlement options. I will cover and elaborate more on bankruptcy and the DRS. Now, garnishee order. Now, this is quite uncommon nowadays. What happens in a garnishee order is, let's say a creditor obtains a favorable judgment against me. I'm the debtor. And I still do not comply with whatever instructions that's been given to me. And they can actually file for a garnishee order. Now, when they file for a garnishee order, meaning I owe to bank A, let's say $20,000. Okay, I don't pay to bank A, right? I refuse to pay and comply with this order. I don't pay to bank A, but I have money, sufficient money in bank C, my account in bank C. There's sufficient money. Now, if the garnishee order were to actually be proceeded with, they can take money from my bank C without asking me for permission to pay off to bank A. Now, this is what I mean by a garnishee order. Now, similarly for right of set off. Now, set off is actually a legal clause that gives the lender, let's say the bank, to seize a debtor's deposits when he or she defaults on a loan. Now, this is basically to offset whatever payments. Example, I owe to bank B a certain amount of money. But at the same time, I have a bank account, a savings account with bank B, where every month on the 25th, my employer will be depositing my monthly salary into that account. What happens is that if the right of set-off were to take place, bank B can just absorb whatever money that goes into my account to pay off, to offset my loans with bank B. Yeah, so this can take place. Now, what are the do's and don'ts when we talk about getting out of a debt spiral? Firstly, remember to stop using your credit cards or your credit line accounts. Do not ignore calls or letters coming from your creditors. And to make best effort payments while you are seeking help and exploring options available. Okay, so these are the 3 things that you need to take note of. Now, with that, we end segment number 1, and we shall proceed with segment number 2 on the various types of debt settlement options. Now, in this segment, I will be sharing with you 6 type of options. Let's begin. Okay, the first 3 on your screen, the DCP or the debt consolidation plan. Option 2 is a lump sum settlement with a discount. Now, option number 3 is self-administration. Option 4 will touch on CCS debt management program. Option 5 and 6, which involves the insolvency, which is the bankruptcy application, and the DRS, or known as the debt repayment scheme. Let's start off with the DCP. Now, what is a DCP? Okay, debt consolidation plan. This is actually a loan product offered by banks and financial institutions. Okay, unsecured debt refinancing program for credit cards and credit line accounts. Now, what happens is that it will combine the unsecured borrowings with different banks into a single loan with one bank. Okay, example, I owe to four banks: Bank A, Bank B, Bank C, and Bank D. So I apply for a DCP with Bank A. Let's say Bank A rejects my offer. I apply with Bank B and Bank B accepts my offer. So what happens is that Bank B will be clearing all my outstanding balances with Bank A, Bank C, and Bank D, and you only technically own to just one bank, which is Bank B. That is the DCP approved bank. Now, under the DCP, borrower can actually make monthly installments to the DCP bank up to 10 years and can be granted a credit facility with a credit limit of 1 month income. Now, do take note, under the DCP, these are the type of unsecured loans that are not included in the DCP. Now, what are these unsecured loans that is not included in the DCP? Joint account loans, any renovation loan, any education loan, medical loan, credit facilities granted for business. Now, all these cannot be included in the debt consolidation plan. How do you apply for the DCP? Well, you need to apply with participating banks and financial institutions. Let's see just what are the eligibility criteria. Okay, this is for Singaporean citizen and PR with an annual income of 20,000 and below 120,000, net personal assets less than 2 million, interest bearing unsecured debts 12 times of the monthly salary. Example, my monthly salary is $3,000, so it's 12 times is about $36,000. Now, approval of the DCP is at the sole discretion of the bank. Now, what if you are already on a DCP and you're having some difficulties in making payments to the banks? Now, you can actually apply for an extend of the DCP tenure up to 5 years. Now, existing relief plans application period is also extended to 30th of June 2021. Account must be between 30 to 90 days past due at the point of application. Now, for more information, please check out the Monetary Authority of Singapore websites for this information. Next, we move on to the lump sum settlement with a discount. Now, you can approach creditors directly to propose for a full settlement of a debt at a discount. Now, for this option, is only for those who have sufficient funds, right? Now, funds may come from the sale of a property or a non-bank low interest loan, such as a loan, a cooperative loan, but in no way that we are actually encouraging people to sell off their properties. And so you have to look at your own financial situation, yeah? Now, have sufficient funds, as I mentioned earlier, to make proposal meaningful. Now, this option also will require time and effort, especially when you are negotiating with your creditors. Now, acceptance of the settlement is at the sole discretion of your creditors. Now, let's say I give you an example. Let's say I owe to this particular bank $15,000 and I want to make a full settlement with them. And I only have, let's say, only 13,000. Okay, I have money in hand, 13,000. 15,000 is the loan I owed. And I start to carry out the negotiations with the creditor. Okay, and asking them for a discount. Say, I don't have 15,000 to close, but I have 13,000. Can you accept my offer? Now, acceptance of the settlement is still at the discretion of the creditor whether they want to accept or not. But it has to be in a way, it has to match. For example, if I owe 15,000, I have 13,000, maybe there's a good chance that you can accept. What if I owe $12,000, but I only have $5,000 in cash and I want to make a meaningful proposal? I want to ask for a discount and it's like very far off, right? 5,000 and 12,000 is really like 7,000 difference. I don't think that the bank will want to accept that kind of offer at a discount. So you need to really carefully consider you have sufficient funds. You have to also have the patience because it's going to require a lot of time and effort, especially when you want to bring it up across to your creditors when you're doing the negotiations. Now, the other option that you have is self-administration. Now you can approach the creditors directly to request for a repayment of debts through their monthly installment plans. Now, under a bank arrangement is something like a debt relief plan lah. Okay, now you need to actually explain your financial situation and to propose a plan. And normally we will want, or we will recommend you to actually put it in writing into a proposal. Yeah, um, to write down the situation, and definitely the banks are going to ask for certain supporting documents and all that. You need to actually work with the banks. Now, bear in mind, even if after you've come up with the proposal in writing, you already put up the request, you already come up with whatever documents that the bank provide. Now, acceptance of this proposal is still at the discretion of the bank or the creditor itself. Yeah, do take note. Okay, we come to the next option, which is on bankruptcy. Now, this is a last resort. Please remember this is a last resort because it is a legal process. It involves insolvency. Let's say you've already explored all other options, you cannot find a way out, then you may consider bankruptcy. But this should not be the first choice. When anyone who wants to address a debt problem, this should not be your first option. Okay, now bankruptcy can happen in two ways. One of them is through a creditor action, meaning that one of the creditors would to file for bankruptcy against the applicant. Now, the next thing is that self-filing, meaning I myself and an individual, I find that okay, after I've exhausted all my options, it seems that I bankruptcy is the only way out for me. And I want to, before any of my creditors will want to come and take action against me, I decided to file for bankruptcy on myself. Now, bear in mind, there is a certain fee that's involved. Now, for filing of the self-petition is about $1,850, and you have to pay this petition deposit to Ministry of Law. Now, having said that, for the documentations, the different forms that you need to fill up for submission, it will take roughly another $300 to $400 more. So all in all, you can say it can take about 2,000 to 3,000. Especially sometimes there are people who actually will want to go to a third-party legal organization, a legal company, and then they say they want to seek assistance for filing of bankruptcy. Then the legal company will charge you even more. So just take note, there are two ways for bankruptcy: is either through a creditor action or a self-filing by the individual. Now, what is the amount that if let's say I cannot repay before the creditor to sue me for bankruptcy? Now, under normal circumstances, the bankruptcy application, the threshold is more than 15,000. Right, minimally 15,000. It has to be more than 15,000. Now, during COVID-19, this threshold has been increased to 60,000. Now, the statutory demand period also from 21 days to 6 months. However, this was only effective from the 20th of April to 19th of October recently. Okay, and so far we do not receive any information from Ministry of Law that they are going to extend this now. Now, having said that, it comes back to the 15,000 threshold. Now, if you notice that you have any of your creditors around this amount, they may continue with, or they may want to consider taking a legal action against you because the threshold is no longer 60,000. Yeah, this is just an article sharing with you on the 19th of May where the relief measures kick in on bankruptcy earlier on this year. Now, during a bankruptcy or in bankruptcy itself, there will be this person known as an OA or an official assignee. Now, what does this OA do? Now, this OA is actually assigned by the High Court to administer the financial affairs of the bankrupt. Now, in some cases, it can be known as a PT, a private trustee. Now, private trustee can either be an accountant or it can be a lawyer that's assigned. Okay, now do take note. Taking over all the bankrupt's assets, manage a sale of assets and distribute among the creditors. Okay, and to assist obtaining a discharge for bankruptcy. So this is the role of the official assignee. Now, however, I put an asterisk here. When you talk about managing the sale of assets, now for HDB flat with at least one owner who is Singaporean and your CPF monies are excluded. Okay, take note, they won't be taking your CPF monies and your HDB flat. when we talk about managing of sale of assets during a bankrupt. Now, there's this thing also known as the target contribution. Okay, there's also the monthly contribution. So monthly contribution payments must be made towards meeting a target contribution. Now, this will be set by the official assignee after taking into consideration the individual's personal and family expenses. Now, if the target contribution has been paid in full and there are no objections from other creditors, bankrupt will be eligible for a discharge. However, okay, do take note, target contribution is paid in full for a first-time bankrupt, can be discharged between 3 to 7 years. Okay, his or her name will be removed from public records 5 years after the date of discharge. Now, if the target contribution is not paid in full, now this person or the bankrupt may be discharged after 7 years, but the name in public records will be permanent. Okay, now this can affect the credit worthiness of this person in future. Example, if you want to take up a loan, a study loan for your children, now you'll be prevented lah by doing so because your name is still on public records permanently. Now, information on this is available in the Ministry of Law's website under the Insolvency Office. Now, do take note for bankruptcy, there are several restrictions. Now, a bankrupt cannot leave Singapore without obtaining the OA's permission. Let's say I have to go overseas due to work. My employer wants me to go to work during this period, to this period overseas. I will have to let my OA know. I have to do my own filing online. If some of you are very familiar or have served in national service before, there's this thing known as the exit permit. Now it's very similar. Okay, for a bankrupt to actually to leave for overseas, you get to apply online first, seeking the permission from the OA, providing all the necessary supporting documents. Example, if your employer wants you to go out to work overseas, you need to show proof. Okay, now being a bankrupt, you must also inform a lender that you are a bankrupt, especially if you are borrowing anything more than $1,000. This one you need to be honest, and you also need to seek the OA's permission if intending to manage a business or act as the director of a company. Now, when we talk about bankruptcy's restriction, it can also be sensitive to certain industries. Example, the finance sector. Okay. Now, next we move on into the debt repayment scheme, otherwise known as the DRS. Now, the DRS was set up on the 18th of May 2009. Now, there's no way that a person can say, I want to apply for DRS. It has to be initiated by a bankruptcy application. I repeat this again. There's no way you can apply for a DRS. It has to be initiated by a bankruptcy application. Okay, now under this repayment scheme is to assist the debtors with a regular source of income to avoid bankruptcy. Now, suitability is still subject to the eligibility criteria and assessment made by the official assignee. Okay, remember, you cannot apply for a DRS because it has to be initiated with a filing of a bankruptcy application. Now, what are these common eligibility criteria? Okay, the debt size not exceeding 150,000 has to be gainfully employed and earning a regular income, has not been a bankrupt or put on the DRS for the last 5 years, have not been subjected to any court-based arrangement in the last 5 years, and not a sole proprietor or a partner in a firm. Now, for the DRS, the official assignee will still be around. Similarly, like the bankruptcy, the OA's role. So the OA will determine on a monthly amount to repay the creditors. Okay, and under this debt repayment plan is up to 5 years. Okay, while on the DRS, the debtor is not adjudged a bankrupt. Now, however, non-payment and non-compliance will result in termination. let's say you miss any payments or you do not comply with the terms and condition of the DRS, now it can be terminated and creditors may initiate a fresh bankruptcy proceedings. Now, if you recall earlier when I mentioned on self-filing of bankruptcy, right? So if a person wants to file for bankruptcy, he has to put aside the self-petition of $1,850 and then some other forms of payments for the forms to be filled and everything. Now, for the DRS, upon the review by the OA, there are additional costs. Okay, when the OA reviews the DRS itself before acceptance, you need to pay about $250. Now, upon the initial um, assessment, if found suitable, there's another fee of $350. And for the next 5 years, if you're successfully placed on a DRS, there's also a yearly charge. Okay. Now, especially also when there is a certain review, for example, the monthly amount that you're supposed to pay for DRS, there's a certain change. There's also additional charges involved. Now, let's find out more on CCS debt management program. Right, remember just now, if you want to go into DRS, you have to apply for a bankruptcy application first, right? Because for DRS is for people who wants to avoid bankruptcy. Now, for the CCS debt management program, is also another way for individuals who want to avoid bankruptcy to explore. Now, CCS Debt Management Program, the DMP, is actually a debt repayment arrangement between the Association of Banks and CCS. If you recall in my earlier slides, CCS working partners are ABS, uh, the Credit Bureau Singapore, CBS, and also the Credit Association of Singapore, right? Now, it is a comprehensive solution to address unsecured debts with all bank creditors. Now, this is only made for borrowers in financial distress, unable to make payments to multiple creditors and unable to provide for self and dependents. And what are the key features of our debt management program or the DMP? That is to repay total unsecured debts in full to all bank creditors via a monthly installment. Now, proposal for the bank. CCS will actually prepare a proposal to the banks to offer a request for a longer period of repayment and at a reduced interest rate. Now, if you have any existing repayment plans with the bank, right, with any banks, and you intend to be on the DMP if you are found suitable, all these other existing repayment plans will be cancelled. The remaining amount will be incorporated into the DMP. Okay, do take note that in the DMP itself, there will be no more use of an unsecured credit facility. That means you cannot no longer can hold on to any credit cards. Now, if you're on board the DMP status will be reflected on the Credit Bureau Singapore credit report. Now remember, being on the DMP is on a voluntary arrangement. Now, it is all dependent on your own willingness, your own commitment to fully repay your debts to all your creditors. Now, approval of the DMP is at the sole discretion of the banks. What are the general eligibility for the DMP? Okay, total unsecured debts of at least 10,000 with at least 1 year of banking relationship. Now, unsecured debts owing to at least two banks or more, two creditors or more. Okay, then you may come to us, right? If let's say I only owe to one bank, let's say I only owe $10,000, and then I don't, you see, you tell me that the unsecured debt borrowing must be at least two banks. I only owe to one bank 10,000. Can I come and seek assistance from CCS meeting a financial counselor? Yes, you still can come and make an appointment to meet with a financial counselor. Now, however, whether suitable to be on board the DMP, the financial counselor will be exploring with you further. Now, in the past, we have come to make some exceptions, but this is only on a case by case basis subject to the assessment by the financial counselor itself. Okay, the third general eligibility is you have to have the sufficient payment capacity. Okay, I will elaborate further what it means by sufficient payment capacity. Now, it has to come from a source of income so that you're able to make monthly payments to reach full settlement within a reasonable period of time, usually around 3 to 8 years. Now, payment capacity. Let's say you have your income after you have allocated all your basic living expenses for yourself and dependents. How much do you have left for a debt repayment? Okay, you have an income. And these are just some of the examples of the expenses on a monthly basis, right? You have your food and groceries, you got to pay for your um, property tax, your income tax, and you have all these. If you have parents to support, you have children to support, and if you're taking public transport example, you have to put aside money, right, every month for your easy link and things like that. So after taking your income, minusing off all your expenses, what do you left? What do you have left? Now, basically, this entails your payment capacity. Now, remember earlier on I mentioned everyone's financial situation is not the same and everyone's financial commitments are not the same. So everyone's payment capacity also will differ. And also we have to look at the total aggregate size of the person's debt. Now, in my earlier slide, I mentioned about the collaboration between CCS and the Credit Association of Singapore. Now, in addition to bank debts, let's say I also have licensed moneylender debts. Okay, so we also have a restructuring debt payment arrangement. Okay, however, you need to have sufficient payment capacity to work out both. That means for a person who have bank debts and also licensed moneylender debts, will work out two DMP for you. One is the regular consumer debt management program with the banks to pay off the banks, and the other one is the moneylenders debt management program for payments to the moneylenders. So you need to have both sufficient payment capacity to work out both. So it's still subjected to the individual moneylenders and the bank's approval under this. Now, a summary of the 6 debt settlement options. You have option number 1, DCP, Debt Consolidation Plan. Now, this is a loan commercial product with the banks and financial institutions. To apply, you need to actually approach the banks and apply through them. Option number 2 is on lump sum settlement with a discount, provided that you have sufficient means and resources to actually carry out meaningful negotiations with your creditors. However, it's at the sole discretion of accepting the settlement is still up to the creditors. And option number 3 is on self-administration. See whether you can actually put up a proposal or to go into a debt relief plan with the bank. Similarly, also, it's at the discretion of the banks itself. Now, option number 5 and 6. Now, these are last resort. Remember, it involves insolvency, right? So we talk about bankruptcy, we talk about the debt repayment scheme and how actually an individual cannot apply just for the DRS. It has to be initiated by a bankruptcy application, okay? And finally, to also avoid for bankruptcy, you can actually consider CCS Debt Management Program or the DMP, and this is facilitated by CCS. Let's do a quick comparison on the three. DCP with banks, the DMP facilitated by CCS, and the DRS or the debt repayment scheme, which is by a court-based arrangement. Will your name appear in public records only if you are under a DRS, which is initiated by a bankruptcy application? Now, under the DCP and CCS DMP, no, there will be no records in public records. Now, nationality. For DCP, is only suitable for Singaporeans and PRs. Now, for the DMP, is for Singaporean and PR and also for foreigners, but foreigners who owe to local banks. Okay, for the DRS is only for Singaporean and PRs. Type of debts, remember for the DCP, it does not include renovation loan, education loan, medical loan, business loans, and joint account loans. For CCS debt management program, it's considered all types of unsecured borrowings. Now, for the DRS, it's also similar. Now, for the debt amount, for the DCP, it has to be 12 times more your monthly income. For the DMP, minimally at least 10,000. There is no maximum limit. Okay, it can be 100,000, it can be 200,000, because remember, for the DMP, it all boils down to the person's or the individual's payment capacity, whether it can be put successfully on a debt management plan or debt repayment arrangement facilitated by CCS. Now, for the DRS, it has to be more than 15,000 and not more than 150,000. All right, for interest rates for the DCP and the DMP is, yes, it's lower than existing interest rate. Now, the tenure for the DCP can be up to 5 years, up to 10 years. For the DMP, can be on average between 5 to 10 years. For the DRS, court-based arrangement is up to 5 years. Now, for the DCP, can be granted a credit facility with a 1-month credit limit. For the DMP, you have to forego all forms of credit facilities. Similarly, for the DRS as well. I do hope that with this summary, everyone is a bit clearer now with the differentiation between the three. You can see that everything starts with the D, right? So you need to understand DCP is with banks. DMP is facilitated by CCS. It's a voluntary arrangement between yourself and the banks facilitated by CCS. Now, the DRS or the debt repayment scheme is actually a court-based arrangement. Now, with that, I've come to an end of segment number 2 on the debt settlement options. In total, we have explored 6. Now, before going into segment number 3, which is the final segment of the debt management webinar, I would like to invite all of you who may have any questions to actually start typing in the Q&A box. Right? You see a Q&A box below. You can start to type some of your questions, and I will do my best to address as many as I can at the end of the webinar. Okay? Now, without further ado, let's move on to the final segment of our webinar on seeking assistance and how to prepare oneself for a financial counseling session with CCS. Now, what's the purpose of the financial counseling? Okay, basically, we want to have a meaningful discussion, a very private discussion, not only with just anyone, with a professional financial counselor. Also, during this session is for you to take stock of your overall financial situation, to explore and understand what are the various options available. Remember the first segment I covered on CCS, right? Making an informed choice, making changes, and seeking assistance. So it comes back to the first point, which is on making an informed decision on what to do next. And at the end of the session also is to determine whether the person has sufficient payment capacity to be placed on our debt management program or the DMP. Now, also during the session, you need to be prepared to answer questions. What kind of questions are we talking about? Pertaining to the sources of income, the assets you own, how much you owe, and who you owe. Now, be open to volunteering all this information, right? That you can tell us, you have bank loans, you have money lender loans. Eventually, I will share with you what are the documents actually we will want for supporting documents that you need to submit to us as well. Now, bear in mind also, you need to open up, meaning that you also share with us if, let's say, you owe to personal creditors such as your family members or your friends, how much you need to put aside to make payment to them. You need to be open, you need to be truthful to us so that we can have and make the financial counselor can make an accurate judgment of the whole situation and give you the best and proper advice. Now, you also need to prepare to answer questions pertaining on how you actually spend your money every month on your utilities, on your food and groceries, on your children's education, your meals, your public transport, etc. Now, this information may impact your ability to service your debt. So that's why you need to be open to the financial counselor. You need to inform us. Now, during this session also, the financial counselor will be going through with you again on the monthly budget. Assisted by the financial counselor. Okay, so we go through segment by segment of the monthly budget, and then we'll go through one by one, line by line, and see whether, okay, this is the amount that you put aside every month. Okay, is this the amount, to just verify, and also to give suggestions on whether certain areas need some improvement. So be prepared when it comes to making changes, when it comes to making adjustments to your lifestyle and your spending habits. I mentioned earlier on being open when it comes to receiving and seeking assistance. Also, the same goes to receiving that advice. Okay, be open to other options. Now, for the time being, during the COVID situation, all forms of financial counseling will be done through phone counseling. Yeah, and face to face is only by case basis exception. Now, in the past, before COVID 19, when we were normally conducting face to face financial counseling, normally we will charge a $30 fee. Now, basically, this $30 fee is like a commitment. When you come, you make an appointment, you sit and meet with a financial counselor. Basically, this is just a one-off charge of $30. Now, however, during the circumstances now, during COVID itself, all forms of financial counseling is done through the phone, and we are waiving all any form of fees. Okay, I repeat, right now it's done, all the financial counseling is done through the phone, and we waive all fees. Now, for the financial counseling done through the phone, we will strongly advise you to, once the appointment has been made for you, the date and time, you need to find a secured location, a very quiet place where you can actually have a meaningful discussion with the financial counselor. Now, submitting a counseling request form. And what are the other supporting documents you need to submit to CCS? Now, why are these documents necessary? Basically, is to assess your financial situation comprehensively. It's also to facilitate discussions, meaningful discussions with the financial counselor. Okay, these are just some of the documents I will go through with you in the next few slides. I just pause here for a while, just for you to take a look for a while. You will need a Credit Bureau Singapore report. How you can get your hands on this credit report? You can actually buy it online by going to the website www.creditbureau.com.singapore. It can be purchased by $6.42 including GST, or you can also choose to purchase from the SingPost branch, any SingPost branch. But however, it's not immediate. When you go and line up and say you want to get a Credit Bureau Singapore report from SingPost, you will be asked to come either the next working day or 2 working days to come and collect it. Now, similarly, you can also go to the Credit Bureau Singapore's office located at this address to purchase the report. Now, what does this credit report, this Credit Bureau Singapore report entails? Basically, it's the record of the credit payment history compiled from various banks. Now, similarly, if you have or you owe money to licensed moneylender, we also would like you to furnish us with the Moneylender Credit Bureau report. It can be purchased via this website. It's available for $1. You only need to download this or to get this report only if you have loans with licensed moneylender. Now, similarly, this is also similar like your credit bureau report, right? It's a record of the borrower loan information compiled from the various moneylenders. Next, you also need to get your CPF statements. Okay, your transaction history for the last 15 months. Yeah, noted here, 15 months of transaction history, as well as your contribution history statement for the past 15 months. Okay, you can get it from www.cpf.gov.sg. I think you will need your SingPass, right, to do this. Now, income documents. If let's say you are a salaried employer with a fixed income, who actually want your latest month payslip, payment voucher, or letter of employment. Let's say you just started working for a company. Now, plus any statement before February 2020 to show any income drop due to COVID-19. Now, what if I am a commissions worker? Let's say I'm an insurance agent or I'm a property agent. You need to furnish us with commission statements for the last 3 months. Okay, similarly also any statement before February 2020 or your income tax for 2019. Anything to show income drop due to COVID-19. Now, what if I am a self-employed personnel? I drive Grab, or I give private tuition. Okay, we will need a statement of monthly income earned. For Grab drivers, I think we will need your statements lah, your statements, your monthly record of your statements. Okay, record of your daily income as well. Okay, plus any record to show if there's any drop of income. Now, what if I run my own business? Okay, we'll need your bank account statements. Okay, for the past 3 months, any banks or any business financial statements for the last 2 years, your income tax assessment for the last 2 years also. Now, this is how our counseling request form will look like. Now, in order for you to receive this, at the end of this webinar, we'll be providing you with a link, an online feedback link. And once you completed that online feedback link, you will be able to download this counseling request form. I'll refer to the first page I have here. Now, these are the information that I just shared earlier, right? Just now, your credit bureau report. If you have money lenders, you need to also provide us with your money lender credit bureau report, your income statements, your 15 months CPF transaction history, your 15 months CPF contribution history. Submit it together with this counseling request form. That means you have all your supporting documents and your counseling request form. I will share in a while how you can submit this to us. Okay, once you have successfully submitted the counseling request form, you got to fill up everything in the form itself with your supporting documents. When you submit it to us, then for every complete submission, you will receive an appointment date and time via email for the appointment with our financial counselor. Now, in the counseling request forms as well, one of it on page 11 is this monthly budgeting form. I need to draw a bit of attention on this, yeah? So in this monthly budgeting form is basically what are your expenses on a monthly basis. It's actually broadly categorized into housing expenses, your work expenses, your living expenses, and your personal expenses. Now, please estimate the dollar amount set for each month for every of this item. Now, let's say your utility bills is about $120.22, something like that. Please round it up to the nearest dollar. Now, we talk about meals. Example, your daily expenditure, right? Now, this is a monthly budget. So let's say per day I only spend $6 on my for my makan every day I go to work. Now, depending on how many days I work in a month. If it's 5.5, maybe I just take $6 times 22. If let's say it's a full month, then it's like $6 times 30. Remember that this is a monthly budget. It's not a weekly budget. Now, let's say I spend $100 every week for my grocery. So in 1 month is $100 times 4. Then I will put it under food and grocery, $400. Now, what about those irregular and yearly expenditure? Example, you don't always see the doctor every month, right? But on an average, how much do you spend? If you see the doctor after cutting if you have a CHAS card, whatever subsidy, how much do you normally have to pay for your medical expenses? Then you put it here roughly, yeah? And you can actually take an example. For example, last year I spent one whole year, maybe $100 that I spent on medical. So you take $100, maybe you want to divide by 12. That's just a rough gauge. But if you know better every month how much roughly you put aside, if you need to see a doctor, then you can put in the figure there. Now, other things like road tax and property tax, all these, you take the whole of last year's amount, you divide by 12, roughly you will know a figure. Please try not to put too many zeros here. That means try to put as many as you can on each of the items in the budget. Now, this will actually help the financial counselor to assess your situation. And when we talk below here, income minus your expenses, we are looking at finalizing your payment capacity. But during the financial counseling, the financial counselor will explore this again with you. But you need to complete this as part of your submission to us first in the counseling request form. Now, paying some attention also on page 3 of the counseling request form is this consent and agreement. Now, your consent is requested before CCS can provide with counseling services. You need to read carefully and you need to sign it. Yeah, you really need to sign and agree to this before we can move forward with the financial counseling. So, with all that has been talked about, you have, okay, let's say after this session you completed our online feedback, you received the link to download the counseling request forms, and along with all your necessary and relevant supporting documents, you can either send it to us by post. This is our address here, 51 Carpage Road. This is our office address. You can either come and also deposit outside our office. We have a drop box right outside our office, but remember to put everything into a sealed envelope, the information that we require. Or similarly, also you can, after getting all your necessary supporting documents and our counseling request forms which you have already completed, you can also scan. Yeah, scan and also drop us an email. Complete all your submissions. Drop us an email at precounsel@ccs.org.sg. Okay, I'll just pause here for a while for you to just take note of this information. Okay. Now, please note, CCS will use the information provided by you based on its truthfulness, based on accuracy and completeness to assess your situation, to offer advice and identify suitable solutions. Now, we cannot force you to come to a decision. Remember, your informed decision or your choice has to be made by you. Okay, after talking to the financial counselor, what are the various options that you have to decide what is best for yourself. Nobody can decide for you. Okay. Now, what are the step-by-step guide to seeking assistance from CCS? Let's just go through the whole process for everyone's knowledge. Okay, so after attending this talk, you finish the online feedback, you will receive these counseling request forms. Now, along with all the necessary relevant supporting documents, you put everything together, complete everything, you submit to us. Submit to us either via post, via our Dropbox outside our office, or via email. Once submissions are completed and received on our end, CCS will inform you of your date and time of the appointment for you to attend appointment, financial counseling appointment via phone. Now remember, case by for face to face is exceptional cases only. Yeah. Uh, so all appointments of financial counseling are made through phone. Now, when you meet with a financial counselor, after getting your information from you and assessing your financial situation, your financial commitments, and determining your payment capacity. Now, if suitable, CCS will prepare a proposal on your behalf, all right, a repayment plan as well, a schedule. Now, we'll actually be asking our internal review committee for endorsement first of the DMP proposal. Then you will receive it. You will see the proposal that has been prepared by CCS and you have to review and accept it. Once you have accepted the proposal, only then we will be sending it out to the creditor, but it won't be immediate lah. Let's say today the case administrator send you all the documents and say, okay, this is your DMP proposal, do you agree and accept and acknowledge? Then once you agree and accept and acknowledge, right, then we'll be making the preparations to send it to your creditor, but it won't be on the same day lah. Okay, so once CCS submits the DMP proposal to the creditors for their approval, now, once we receive the outcome, CCS receives the outcome from the various banks, we will inform you via email. Now, during this DMP, you will be supported by our debt servicing and support team, or DSS team, will be supporting you, okay, through onboarding and provide you support during your DMP. Now, when I say onboarding, is we have a session whereby we will share with our DMP clients what are the terms and conditions during the DMP, what are the do's and don'ts, how do you make payment during your DMP to all your creditors. All these will be covered. Now, all in all, for step 1, 2, and 3 is about 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, and then for coming to getting the proposal, getting the endorsements, and reviewing it, will take another 2 weeks. So all in all, it can take about 4 weeks. So we're really seeking your understanding and your patience because we really have lots of intake right now. Okay. Now, with that, actually, I have come to the end of the debt management webinar today.